Hello. This is a new article that was released from The Guardian, April 2nd. It reads the headline, "Not a Normal War. Doctors say children have been targeted by Israeli snipers in Gaza." And pictured here is a child hospitalized with a gunshot wound at the European Public Hospital near Rafah, Gaza, in February 2024. Now, we're talking about something very sensitive. So this page I've already been through. So if pictures like this bother you, if images of children suffering, children injured are a trigger for you, I would suggest either skipping forward or just opting out of this one for now, because there are some pretty bad pictures. But we'll read this. We'll get through it. Dr. Fawzia Alvi was making her rounds of the intensive care unit on her final day at the battered European Public Hospital in southern Gaza when she stopped next to two young arrivals with facial injuries and breathing tubes in their windpipes. I asked the nurse, "What's the history?" She said that they were brought in a couple of hours ago. They had sniper shots to the brain. They were 7 or 8 years old, she said. The Canadian doctor's heart sank. These were not the first children treated by Alvi, who she was told were targeted by Israeli soldiers, and she knew the damage a single high-caliber bullet could do to a fragile young body. They were not able to talk, paraplegic. They were literally lying down as vegetables on those beds. They were not the only ones. I saw even small children with direct sniper shot wounds to the head as well as the chest. They were not combatants. They were small children, said Alvi. Children account for more than 1 in 3 of the more than 32,000 people killed in Israel's months-long assault on Gaza, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry. Tens of thousands more young people have suffered severe injuries, including amputations. Amputations for children in hospitals that are failing. They're being raided, they're being sieged. This is a picture of Dr. Fawzia Alvi checks in on a child who was shot in Gaza and is receiving care for brain and facial injuries at the European hospital near Rafah. 9 doctors gave The Guardian accounts of working in Gaza hospitals this year, all but one of them foreign volunteers. Their common assessment was that most of the dead and wounded children they treated were hit by shrapnel or burned during Israel's extensive bombardment of residential neighborhoods, in some cases wiping out entire families. Others were killed or injured by collapsing buildings, with still more missing under the rubble. As of now, there's over 8,000 people missing. But doctors also reported treating a steady stream of children, elderly people, and others who were clearly not combatants with single bullet wounds to the head or chest. Some of the physicians said the types and location of the wounds and accounts of Palestinians who brought children to the hospital led them to believe the victims were directly targeted by Israeli troops. Other doctors said they did not know the circumstances of the shootings, but that they were deeply troubled by the number of children who were severely wounded or killed by single gunshot wounds, sometimes by high-caliber bullets causing extensive damage to young bodies. In mid-February, a group of UN experts accused the Israeli military of targeting Palestinian civilians who were evidently not combatants, including children, as they sought shelter. "We are shocked by reports of deliberate targeting and extrajudicial killing of Palestinian women and children in places where they sought refuge or while fleeing. Some of them were reportedly holding white pieces of cloth when they were killed by the Israeli army or affiliated forces, the group said. The Guardian shared descriptions and images of gunshot wounds suffered by 8 children with military experts and forensic pathologists. They said it was difficult to conclusively determine the circumstances of the shootings based on the description and photos alone, although in some of the cases they were able to identify ammunition used by the Israeli military. Eyewitness accounts and video recordings appear to back up claims that Israeli soldiers have fired on civilians, including children, outside of combat, with Hamas or other armed groups. In some cases, witnesses describe coming under fire while waving white flags. Haaretz reported on Saturday that Israel routinely fires on civilians in areas its military had declared a combat zone. The IDF, Israeli Defense Forces, deploy snipers or sharpshooters, as the military calls them, during combat operations, often as part of elite units. They are trained to target and eliminate particularly difficult terrorist threats, according to the military's own definition. Israel and foreign human rights groups have documented a long history of snipers firing on unarmed Palestinians, including children, in Gaza and the West Bank. There are tens of thousands of people in the West Bank that live in the Gaza Strip that are trapped. They can't get back. Palestinians in Gaza also reported terrifying new development in the latest Gaza war. Armed drones able to hover over streets and pick off individuals. Called quadcopters, some of these drones are used as remote-controlled snipers that Palestinians say have been used to shoot civilians. This is another image of a patient being treated at a European hospital near Rafah in February. The IDF said it completely rejects allegations that its snipers deliberately fire on civilians. It said it cannot address individual shootings without coordinates of the incidents. The IDF only targets terrorist and military targets. In stark contrast to Hamas's deliberate attacks on Israeli civilians, including men, women, and children, the IDF follows international law and takes feasible precaution to mitigate civilian harm, it said. Doctors say otherwise. Dr. Vanita Gupta, an intensive care doctor at a New York City hospital, volunteered at Gaza's European hospital in January. One morning, 3 badly wounded children arrived in quick succession. Their families told Gupta that the children had been together in the street when they came under fire, and that there had been no other shooting in the area. She said no wounded adults were brought into the hospital at the same time and from the same place. One child I could see that was shot in the head. They were doing CPR on this 5 or 6-year-old girl, who obviously dead. Medical staff performed CPR on a child who was shot in the head. There was another little girl about the same age. I saw a blue bullet enter a wound on her head. Her father was there, crying and asking me, "Can you save her? She's my only child." Gupta said that a 3rd young child had also been shot to the head and was sent for a CT scan. The neurosurgeon looked and said there's no hope. You could see the bullet had gone through the head. I don't know how old he was, but young, she said. Family members told Gupta that the Israeli army had withdrawn from the area about 4 kilometers from the hospital. They said people started returning to their homes because the army was gone, but the snipers stayed on. The family said they opened fire at the children, she said. Doctors who worked at the Nasser hospital in southern Gaza said what appeared to be targeted Israeli fire killed more than 24 people, including children, as they entered or left the hospital in the first weeks of this year. Among the casualties was 14-year-old Rua Kadeh. Doctors say she was shot dead outside the hospital in Khan Yunis as she went to collect water. They said there was no fighting in the area at the time and that she was killed by a single shot, and then men who went to recover her body were also shot at. In Gaza City, 3-year-old Ahmad Abu Akora was shot outside his home as he went to buy fruit with his cousin, Adil, a 20-year-old medical student, who was also killed. The family said they were targeted by an Israeli sniper. A video of the pair lying together in the street show Ahmad still alive after he was first hit and trying to lift his head. More shots hit the ground close by, including ones that strike a plank next to Ahmad. The boy's mother said he was then hit again and this time killed. Adil's father, Harun, saw the shooting. The targeting of civilians is very clear. It is deliberate, direct targeting aimed at civilians without there being any events, without there being any resistance. They deliberately killed Adil and Ahmad, he told Al Jazeera, which Al Jazeera is looking to get banned in Israel now, and soon as Netanyahu signs his bill to completely ban Al Jazeera. Other young victims include a 14-year-old Mehdi Arpa, who was hit by sniper fire alongside his 20-year-old brother Ramiz as they followed Israeli military orders to evacuate an area west of Khan Yunis in late January, according to the Geneva-based Euromed Human Rights Monitor. In the picture here, Palestinian families flee Khan Yunis on January 22nd. According to a witness interviewed by Euromed Monitor, Nahed was carrying a white flag to lead the way for his family, but after walking just a few steps from the house, he was hit in the leg by a bullet. As the teenager attempted to turn back home, he was shot in the back and the head, the witness said. Ramiz was also shot through the heart when he tried to rescue his brother. The family decided it was too dangerous to recover the bodies and eventually fled the area, leaving the brothers still lying in the street. A last photograph shows Ramiz stretched across his body with the white flag tangled between them. That's the image of the two brothers that were shot and killed together. Army executes two brothers who were following orders to evacuate Khan Yunis. They're being told to evacuate and being shot at the same time. The family decided it was too dangerous to recover the bodies and eventually fled the area, leaving the brothers still lying in the street. The last photograph shows Ramiz stretched across Nahid's body with the white flag tangled between them. You can see the flag here. Witnesses said the shots came from the rooftop of a nearby building taken over by Israeli soldiers. A new threat. In December, the Palestine Red Crescent Society said that 13-year-old Amir Ada was killed by an Israeli drone at his headquarters in the El hospital in Khan Yunis. The family told Euromed Monitor he was shot through a window as he played with his cousins on the 8th floor of the building where they had sought shelter from the fighting. The killing was especially notable because a single shot to the chest came from a type of drone not seen in combat in Gaza before, a quadcopter fitted with a gun, camera, and speaker. Unlike some other drones, quadcopters are able to hover over their targets. Dr. Tahir Ahmad, a Chicago doctor who volunteered at Nasser's hospital's emergency room, said quadcopters sometimes appeared in swarms, giving orders to Palestinians to clear an area. We heard an incredible amount of stories from people recovering from injuries from these quadcopters firing bullets from the sky, he said. Ahmad said that on one occasion a drone shot one of the hospital's doctors in the head, although he survived. Dr. Ahmad Marjorie described on Instagram hundreds of quadcopters descending on the Nasser hospital in the third week of February and ordering people to evacuate the compound before killing a number of them. On another occasion, he filmed quadcopters giving instructions to Palestinians to leave the area. Although the Israeli military has previously deployed quadcopters for intelligence gathering, this appears to be the first time that versions of the drone able to fire guns have been used against the Palestinians. Professor Ghassan Abu Sitta, a British Palestinian surgeon and who was recently elected rector of the University of Glasgow, told Mondoweiss, a left-wing Israel-Palestinian news site, that working at the Al Ali Hospital in Gaza City, we were getting a lot of people shot by these quadcopters, these drones that have sniper guns attached to them. Abu Sitta, who has operated on Palestinians wounded by Israeli sharpshooters during visits to Gaza in early years, described the quadcopters are firing single high-velocity shots. We have received over 20 chest and neck gunshot wounds fired from Israeli quadcopter drones. This is a low-flying sniper drone, he wrote on Twitter. An Israeli quadcopter drone drops tear gas canisters during a demonstration in Gaza, marking the 7th anniversary of Nakba on the 15th of May 2018. You can see in the image here the quadcopter. Quadcopter killings documented by Euromed Monitor include 2 children shot dead on January 21st when drones opened fire at Al-Aqsa University near Han Yunis, where thousands of displaced Palestinians were sheltering. The following month, a drone shot dead Elias Abu Jama, a 17-year-old whose family had said had mental and physical disabilities, outside his tent in a Rafah displaced persons camp. Euromed Monitor said that on the same day, a quadcopter killed a 16-year-old Mahmoud El Assar and his 21-year-old sister Asma. There, Ahmad spent 3 weeks at the Nasser hospital in January as a volunteer with the medical charity MedGlobal. Normally, he works at a trauma center in Chicago's South Side, where he regularly deals with gunshot wounds. I did more trauma procedures on pediatric patients in the 3 weeks that I was at Nasser Hospital in Gaza than I did in the 10 years that I've been practicing in the United States, he said. The doctor said he treated 5 children he believes were shot by snipers because the placing of the bullets suggested they were not hit randomly but targeted. They were mostly shot in the thorax, the chest area, some in the abdomen. There was 1 boy shot in the face. As a result, he had a shattered jaw. There were 2 children who had been shot in the chest, young, under the age of 10, who did not survive. 2 others, 1 shot in the abdomen, did survive. They were recovering in the hospital when I left, he said. Ahmad noted the children were often shot by 1 large caliber bullet, which could produce devastating wounds. Another image of Dr. Fawzia Alvi. Dr. Fawzia Alvi, at a European hospital near Rafah, Gaza, in February 2024. Dr. Irfan Galera, a surgeon based in Virginia, slept on the operating room floor of the European hospital between shifts as a volunteer in January. He too saw children badly wounded by high-caliber bullets. Galleria said that a 14-year-old boy arrived at the hospital who had been shot once through the back. When surgeons operated, they found a bullet in the boy's stomach. He was very lucky because it missed a lot of vital organs, but it was just sitting in his abdomen. The surgeon took a photo of the bullet, which former IDF soldiers who spoke with the Guardian identified as a powerful 50 caliber round, typically fired from a machine gun mounted on an armored vehicle, although it has also been used in sniper rifles. They said that vehicle-mounted guns often have advanced sighting systems that allow them to target shots, but that large numbers of 50 caliber rounds could also be fired without precision targeting, making it difficult to establish whether the child was targeted. Other bullets recovered from young Palestinians include 5.56mm rounds that are standard issue for all IDF infantry rifles, but also used by marksmen attached to all infantry units. Gupta provided the Guardian with CT scans of children with head wounds. These included one of an 8-year-old girl that a pathologist described as showing a gunshot wound to the head entering right side with a bullet in brain, medial right temporal lobe. And this is the image of the brain scan showing a bullet lodged in the skull of an 8-year-old Palestinian girl. Although doctors were shocked at the number of child victims, they said they believed the shootings were part of a broader pattern of targeting Palestinian civilians, including elderly people. The vast majority of people we saw were not combatants, said Ahmed. There was an elderly woman who was in the back of a donkey cart when she was shot. The bullet lodged in her spine and she was paralyzed from the waist down, and also her lung collapsed. She was somewhere between 60 and 70 years old. Sniper wounds were common. Dr. Assad al-Ser helped organize a group of doctors outside Gaza to give long-distance guidance to the only Palestinian general surgeon remaining at Nasser Hospital, who had limited experience. Sniper wounds were common and quadcopter gunshots as well, said al-Ser, who grew up in Gaza City and now lives in Texas, United States. Doctors said that apparent sniper shots also account for numerous amputations and long-term disabilities, made all the worse in children because a bullet often causes more damage to small bodies. al-Ser argued that it was also possible to distinguish sniper shots. When it's a sniper, usually it's a bigger bullet, which causes significantly more damage and has more shockwave energy as compared to a smaller rifle or a pistol. If it's a sniper, it may cause amputation of the limb because it would cause damage to the vascular structure, nerves, bones, soft tissue, everything, he said. Another pattern is injury to the spinal cord, where when people are shot in the middle of the abdomen or in the middle of the back. Spinal cord injury is not necessarily fatal unless it's the neck, because it can be disabling, but it can be disabling. In this image, patients at the European hospital near Rafah, Gaza, in February. al-Ser said that one of his elderly relatives, a pioneer of dentistry in Gaza, was among the apparent victims of a sniper. Dr. Mohammed El-Madhoun went missing after seeking medical treatment for a chronic condition at a charity hospital west of Gaza City in December. The 73-year-old body was found near the hospital a week later alongside that of his great-nephew. They had both been shot. The pattern of injury and the amount of damage from the bullet was significant, and that's mainly caused by a sniper, said al-Ser, who reviewed CT scans of the injury. He was obviously old. You wouldn't expect a 73-year-old to be a target, right? The doctor said the cases he reviewed remotely included other elderly people, among them a woman in her 70s. She was shot by a sniper, and she had a massive head bleed. That is non-survivable. She died a day or two later, he said. In October, Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, described the IDF as the most moral army in the world. The Israel military claims to be guided by a purity of arms, doctrine that precludes soldiers from harming unevolved civilians. Most moral army in the world. We heard that before. Israeli and international human rights groups have long said that the military's failure to enforce its own standards and its unwillingness to cover up breaches has contributed to a climate of impunity for soldiers who target civilians. The groups say it is extremely difficult at this stage to quantify the scale of such shootings in Gaza, not least because their staff are often displaced and under attack, but Miranda Cleland of Defense for Children of International Palestine said over the years there had been a clear pattern of Israeli forces targeting Palestinian children with deadly force in situations where the children pose no threat to soldiers. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli soldiers routinely shoot children in the head, chest, or abdomen, all areas from which a child will quickly bleed out if they aren't killed instantly. Many of these children are shot by Israeli forces from great distances, sometimes upwards of 500 feet, which is something only a trained military sniper would be capable of, she said. An Israeli group, Breaking the Silence, collected testimonies from IDF soldiers in earlier conflicts who said they shot Palestinian civilians merely because they were where they're not supposed to be, even though it was evident they were not combatants. IDF snipers boasted about shooting unarmed Palestinian protesters, including young people, in the knees during nearly 2 years of demonstrations at the Gaza border fence from the spring of 2018. In the image here, Palestinians shot in the legs during demonstrations at the Gaza Strip border with Israel. One former Israeli army sniper who did not want to be named told The Guardian that the IDF's open fire regulations were so broad that a soldier has extensive leeway to shoot at anyone once an area is declared a combat zone. The problem is the regulations that enable soldiers who just want to shoot Palestinians. In my experience, most soldiers who pull trigger only want to kill those who should be killed, but there are also those who regard all the Arabs as the enemy and find any reason to shoot or no reason at all, he said, adding that a system of impunity protects such soldiers, even if they are outside the regulations. The system will not protect them. The army will cover up. The other soldiers in the unit will not object, and they will celebrate another dead Arab. There's no accountability, so even the loosest regulations have no real meaning. The Israeli human rights group, B'Tselem, has described the IDF's open fire regulations as no more than a semblance of legality, in part because they are repeatedly violated. Other than a handful of cases, usually involving low-ranking soldiers, no one has been put on trial for harming Palestinians, the group said. In one of the most notorious cases of soldiers shooting young children in the occupied territories, an army captain fired the entire magazine of his automatic rifle into a 13-year-old Palestinian girl, Aman al-Hams, in 2004 after she crossed no security zone, even though she posed no immediate threat, and his own soldiers told him that she was a little girl who was scared to death. The captain was cleared of wrongdoing by a military court. The Israeli military also has a long history of covering up the killings of children. After 11-year-old Khalil el-Murabi was shot dead as he played football in Rafah in 2001, the Israeli human rights organization B'Tselem wrote to the IDF demanding an inquiry. Image 2001 from a child that was killed. This is a funeral procession. Months later, the judge advocate general's office told Burlison that Khalil was shot by soldiers who acted with restraint and control to disperse a riot in the area. However, the IDF made the mistake of attaching a copy of its secret internal investigation, which said the riot had been much earlier in the day and that soldiers who opened fire on the child were guilty of a serious deviation from obligatory norms of behavior. The chief military prosecutor, Colonel Enot Ron, then spelled out alternative false scenarios that should be offered to Burlison to cover up the crime. More recently, the IDF was accused of lying to cover up the shooting of the Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, almost certainly by the Israeli sniper. The military at first blamed the Palestinians and falsely claimed that Abu Akleh was caught in crossfire during a gun battle. No, she was shot deliberately in the head. I saw that day. I'll never forget that. Her employer, Al Jazeera, presented. Also, Al Jazeera is looking to get banned in Israel as a new law, just waiting for Netanyahu to be signed. As if the war crimes against journalism and Al Jazeera, destroying their headquarters, killing untold amounts of family members of journalists, as there's been over 130 journalists that have been killed since the start of this war. Her employer, Al Jazeera, presented video evidence that there was no firefight and at least one Israeli soldier was targeting the journalist. I remember this. So heartbreaking. Shireen Abu Akleh. She was the voice of Palestine. I always remember tuning in to see her stories or reporting. It's tragedy that she is no longer with us. And it is more of a tragedy that her death went unpunished. Murder by an Israeli sniper. LV, the Canadian physician, left Gaza in the third week of February as Israeli forces were threatening a ground assault against Rafah. LV founded the US-based charity Humanitarian Auxilium, which was worked with Rohingya refugees in Bangladesh, displaced Syrians, and earthquake survivors in Turkey. This is not a normal war. The war in Ukraine has killed 500 kids in 2 years, and the war in Gaza has killed over 10,000 in less than 5 months. Let me read that again. This is not a normal war. The war in Ukraine has killed 500 kids in 2 years, and the war in Gaza has killed over 10,000 in less than 5 months. We have seen wars before, but this is something that is a dark stain on our shared humanity. I have a problem with that last paragraph, actually, regarding Ukrainian children. Because as of today, these 9 House Republicans voted against a resolution condemning the Russian abduction of Ukrainian children. The House passed a resolution condemning the Russian abduction of Ukrainian children. 9 Republicans voted against it. That is Andy Biggs of Arizona, Eric Burlison of Missouri, Warren Davidson of Ohio, Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, Clay Higgins of Louisiana, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, Matt Rosendale of Montana, Chip Roy of Texas, Tiffany of Wisconsin. Now, even though that the resolution passed, what are they doing? They're voting in favor of Russia, as they're told. Now, here is the Children of War, Gaza, from February 24th, 2022 to April 3rd, 2024. There's over 19,500 deported or forcibly displaced children of Gaza. However, this number is only, let me find the article. Yeah, this is from CNN, July 31st, 2023. More than 700,000 Ukrainian children taken to Russia since the start of the war, Russia official says. Since February 22nd, 2022, the Russian Federation has received about 4.8 million residents of Ukraine and the Donbass republics, of which more than 700,000 are children. So, why is it that we're seeing 20,000 here, but claims of 700,000 are being mentioned in reputable news sources? And here's another article of currenttime.tv. Since the beginning of the war in Russia, it took more than 700,000 Ukrainian children. 4.8 million residents. Oh, here we go. According to official data of the Ukrainian authorities on July 31st, 2023, 19,546. That's this number right here. According to official data of the Ukrainian authorities on July 31st, 2023, 19,546 children were deported from Ukraine to Russia from Ukraine. These are only those cases that were possible to fix officially when the parent, guardian, or witness of the deportation of the child reported her to the National Information Bureau of Ukraine. So there's over 700,000 children that have been taken in less than 20,000 officially reported. They have to have witness. And their parents are taken too and separated. It is what's happening. 700,000 children since the beginning of the war, the invasion of Ukraine. But only 19,546 are reported to be missing. This is insane. This is horrific. Only 386 children have been able to return to Ukraine out of the 19,546 officially reported as missing out of the total of 700,000. Only 386 children have been able to return to Ukraine. Out of the 19,546 officially reported as missing, sorry about that. So if we take less than 2% of children taken have been returned, but that's out of the 19,000 so many, 19,546. Out of the reportedly 700,000 taken since the beginning of the war. What are these numbers? This is horrific. And again, out of the 700,000 children that have been taken out of the 4.8 million in the Donbass region, these are only those cases that were possible to fix officially. When the parent, guardian, or witness of the deportation of the child reported her or him to the National Information Bureau of Ukraine. So out of the 700,000 children, out of the 4.8 million that were taken out of the Donbass region, only 19,546 have been reported. Let's let that sit for a minute, because it is just a very wild number. Out of the 700,000 children taken out of the 4.8 million Ukrainians since the beginning of the war into Russian territory, only 19,546 have been reported missing officially. This is beyond horrific. This is why that I had a problem with that last paragraph in that last article that compared to the amount of children that have been killed in Russia to the amount of children in Gaza. It is not apples to oranges or apples to apples. It is completely different organic material. $4.8 million people total, 700,000 children, 19,546 reported missing officially. These are numbers that are just absolutely haunting. $700,000 children missing, taken, turned over to Russian masters or who knows what, adopted, abducted. These are insane numbers. And that's why I knew that last article that I read, that last moment that 500 children were killed in Ukraine. This is a completely misleading statistic because it's so much worse. 700,000 children missing and less than 20,000 officially reported missing. This is evil, is grotesque. Since February 2022, the Russian Federation has received about 4.8 million residents of Ukraine in the Donbas republics, of which more than 700,000 are children. They arrive with their parents or other relatives and they're separated. Ever heard that before? Okay. I thank you for joining me here in these just atrocious stories that are coming out. If you haven't already, I appreciate it if you like the stream, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out immensely. Keeps me motivated. While I try to report what I can, it is without justice. There's been so many horrific tragedies in this war in Ukraine already. To think that there is millions of people that are in Russian captivity, Russian slavery. It is the worst. These 9 House Republicans voted against a resolution condemning the Russian abduction of Ukrainian children. It has nothing to do with aid to Ukraine. Everything to do with collusion. I thank you for joining me. Please take care.